I'm bringing you 5 players that you should be avoiding going into the 2023 season. These are players that I'm going to be avoiding in dynasty startups and or trying to pivot off of if I have on my team and try to trade away and sell them high if I possibly can. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what player you are avoiding going into this season. And before we get into it, make sure you go to flockfantasy.com/land and go check it out, man. We partnered over there with Mason, which is pretty awesome, and some other fantasy creators. Once again, flockfantasy.com/land. Use our promo code, get 30% off. You get bonus articles, our rankings, and bonus content, which is pretty awesome. So make sure you go check that out. Once again, flockfantasy.com/land. Get 30% off and a 2-day free trial. So let's get straight into the video. My first must-avoid player on my list is Nick Chubb. He's a guy that I'm just trying to avoid at all costs because I'm projecting in 2023 of this offense to take a step back, I would say, in the run game and a step forward in the passing game. But before I get into it, Nick Chubb this past year did finish as RB6. So he did return value as always for Nick Chubb. Over 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns on the ground. And he's currently, in our latest mock draft, he went at the 602. So he's going around the 6th round right now, and that obviously fluctuates and is going to be fluctuating as we get closer and closer into the season. But one thing I want to kind of bring bring to your attention is that I do believe this offense is going to be taking a step back in the run game and a step forward in the passing game. And there have been multiple reports, even Deshaun Watson, saying we need to open up this offense a little bit more. We need to start passing the ball more. The head coach, Stefanski, also said that, we're going to be opening up the playbook and getting in more in the passing game. And I think that's exactly why you heard of them and why a big reason why they traded for Elijah Moore. Before Elijah Moore, they were really trying to acquire Jerry Jeudy, but clearly that wasn't the case. Apparently, Sean Payton said Jerry Jeudy was not available, even though all the rumors out there saying that the Browns were really close and the Broncos were really close to trying to trade for Jerry Jeudy. But they did acquire Elijah Moore, a guy that I personally believe in, have always been an advocate for Elijah Moore. But now they have Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore in the slot, where a lot of people believe that DPJ is a little bit better, and David Njoku, who did have a breakout season this past year. So now with Deshaun Watson fully having a full season now, going through training camp with all of these guys, and getting chemistry, gaining chemistry, building chemistry with every single one of these players, I do believe he is going to take him to the next level, right? And it's going to be a difficult division, right? If Lamar does stay, that's pretty tough, 2 tough games. You got Kenny Pickett in the Steelers, and you also have Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So it's not going to be easy, but I do believe they're going to have to open up the passing offense if they want to be successful, especially if you're guaranteeing $250 million to Deshaun Watson and you're just going to hand off the ball to Nick Chubb. I think that is a big sign of them saying, you know what, we got to start opening the passing game a little bit more. So, and we kind of saw that just a little bit this past year. Once again, didn't have a massive amount of, I would say, games with Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson towards the end of the season. But when Nick Chubb was playing with Jacoby Brissett, we saw the success. We saw the run game being very successful. And I'm not saying Nick Chubb is going to take a massive step back to where he won't have the potential to finish as an RB6 or an RB10 or whatever the case may be. I think we had to lower our expectations and understand that the decline is here and fastly approaching, just based off of all the rumors and reports that are coming out currently. So Nick Chubb, from weeks 1 to 12, this is with Jacoby Brissett, right? He was finished RB5. And if we look at weeks 1 to 12 to RB13 with Deshaun Watson, weeks 13 to 18 with Deshaun Watson, he finished RB15. You can see on your screen already, points per game also significantly lower when Deshaun Watson was there. The yardage obviously significantly lower because of the games, but even yards per attempt, 5.2 yards point versus 4.8 yards. Even the touchdowns, 12 touchdowns, and he scored 0 touchdowns in that span of that last 5 to 6 games. He did score a touchdown in the air, but on the ground, that was a little bit different. We also have to remember that Kareem Hunt is no longer there. So I do believe this team is going to be looking for that Kareem Hunt role, whether that's a Devin A. Chain, a Sean Tucker that comes in and takes, some workload? Is that a Zach Evans? Is that a Tajay Spears? Do they come in and eat into a Nick Chubb's workload? Do they come in and eat in the passing game where they're going to open up this offense? Is Nick Chubb only going to be a goal line type guy? I doubt it. I personally really do doubt it. But, you have to question it. You have to say, okay, can we pivot and move in different ways at this very moment from Nick Chubb to get someone a little bit more substantial, someone to get a little bit more consistent? Let me remind you, Nick Chubb is 27 years old. He's already, I would say, at that peak of where the running backs could potentially fall. I'm not saying I want him to fall, not saying I believe he's going to decline in as a running back, but I think his usage will get declined for fantasy purposes, right? So these are some plays I'm personally willing and happy to pivot. If I'm trying to pivot off of Nick Chubb, these are some guys I'm trying to look at, even in a dynasty startup. So let me start there. So even in our dynasty startup here this past couple of days, we've been kind of seeing him going once again around the 6th round. I would personally I will be looking at wide receivers, even maybe some other running backs and younger running backs I personally believe could be getting a better opportunity. But here in the 6th round, Quentin Johnston, a guy, obviously, if you've been following us, I believe in Quentin Johnston. I'd be really happy with him. Calvin Ridley, I know he's older. He's 28 years old, 27 years old. I do believe he's going to step into a really big role over there with Trevor Lawrence. I'm happy to go with a younger guy, I would say, or close. So I would say similar in age, guy that I do project to be in the league a little bit longer. DJ Moore, I really love his landing spot as well over there with Chicago. Can you go to a Zach Charbonnet, right? A Brandon Ayuk, a Zay Flowers. These are all guys going in the 6th round around Nick Chubb right now that I'll be really happy with. Now, if you're just looking to trade away Nick Chubb and maybe for another running back and pivot, I'm really happy. Once again, a Zach Charbonnet, I'm really happy to do a Miles Sanders. And keep in mind, none of these trades are perfect. You have to start the conversations. They might be in packages. They might not be straight swaps. Okay, so can I get a Nick Chubb for Ramondre Stevenson? I believe in, but I know some people won't like that. Can I get a Nick Chubb for a Najee Harris? You might have to throw a little bit more in there because Najee Harris is a higher projected running back. But once again, Nick Chubb for a Najee Harris, Nick Chubb for Ramondre Stevenson, and Nick Chubb for a Zach Charbonnet, a Miles Sanders. I'll be really happy to go out and pivot, trade away Nick Chubb, and or be drafting all those other players that I did mention if I was in a dynasty startup today. So try and pivot off of Nick Chubb if you can. My second must avoid player is technically 2, and I know this might be a bit controversial, but I just want you guys to hear me out. I kind of want to put my thought process out there and have you guys understand, if you are a Trey Lance or a Brock Purdy owner, what you should be doing and how you should be pivoting away and why you should be selling both of these guys away, right? And I think there's no doubt that everyone knows what's happening, okay? So if you don't know, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy are going to be in a quarterback fight going into the 2023 season. Who's going to be the quarterback, the QB1? Who are they going to be starting in week 1? According to all reports, as of right now, it's going to be Brock Purdy. According to the fantasy world, I think a lot of people are still believing it's Trey Lance. Can I give you a definite answer of who's going to be the starter? Absolutely not. But let me tell you why I will be pivoting off of these guys. And that's because I'm not necessarily sure that you're going to be able to sell them at any other point in time. So it's either you sell them now before the hype dies down from one of them, or you sell them at the very moment where both of these guys are staying stagnant. There's not much of a trajectory of Trey Lance or Brock Purdy, even though the reports are out. But what's interesting is that Trey Lance is still available. I would say you're still able to trade Trey Lance for a 1st round pick. And I think that's exactly where I am happy to take the chance on avoiding and pivoting from a Trey Lance, even a Brock Purdy. Okay, so at the current moment, and I did this in multiple videos, Zach and I spoke about this. At the current price right now, Trey Lance is going around the 109 for the 109 in the rookie mock draft, so 109 to 111. I'm really happy with that window. I think the sweet spot is 109 to 110. Those are the two ones I would really be comfortable with. I think the 111 stretches it out a bit too much for me. But if I could do 109 and 110 and have the opportunity, have the chance to take a Quentin, a Jordan Addison, even if Will Levis does fall to that to those picks, and he is a top 5, top 8 pick in the real NFL drafts, I'm willing to take that chance with some of these other guys. Now, right at the current moment, though, in our latest mock draft, Brock Purdy went at the 7-11 and Trey Lance went at the 8-1. Here are some quarterbacks that either went before him or after him. Okay. Kenny Pickett went at the 7-4. Okay. Kirk Cousins went at the 7-9. I think I'm still leaning Brock and Trey, but I am definitely leaning Kenny Pickett. Geno Smith went at the 8-02. I'm really happy to take a chance on Geno Smith, and where I believe, he's at least gonna be the quarterback this year in 2023. If they do draft Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, I do believe they're probably going to start Geno over both of those guys. Another guy I'm willing to take a chance on is Jordan Love. And that's because of Aaron Rodgers and this whole situation of him getting traded. So right now, the price for Trey Lance, I think it's okay. It's probably, I don't think you're ever going to get the price that you probably paid for him when in a dynasty startup or in a rookie draft. There's no way you're going to get that price, and you're going to have to take that hit and be okay with that hit. But Brock Purdy right now, you can also trade him away for the 202, which is very interesting. And I'm pretty sure I would do that right now and take a chance on a Zay Flowers, a Sean Tucker, an Izzy, a Zach Evans, anyone else, because I'm not sure if Brock Purdy is going to be the starter. And that's the risk you have to take. You have to either trade Brock Purdy away and say, you know what, I'm going to live with it. And if he is a starter, oh well. And if he's not the starter, then you won. That's the risk for both Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. And I think if you can trade both of them as a package together and maybe squeeze out the 1-7, the 1-8, I would even say the 106, and maybe even throw some a little bit more sweeter in there for those Trey Lance and Brock Purdy believers, I would be really happy. I'm just trying to avoid risk aversion here in this scenario. That's why I'm really happy to avoid and be trading and or pivoting away from both Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. Let me know. I know this is really controversial. I'm really sorry for the Trey Lance believers, but I think it's time to move on. I think you guys have. You guys have been patient, and everything has not been going your way at the very moment. So I'm sorry about that, but try and pivot, see what you can do. And I'm really interested to see what trades you have made also. So make sure you comment down below or put it in our Discord, put it on the trades or in the Dynasty tab. I'm really interested to see where and what type of trades you guys have done. My next must avoid player, my third, I would say an extra bonus as well. Two guys in the same team is another group here. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And I would say I'm leaning more avoiding Mike Evans over Chris Godwin, but let me get into it first. Okay, so I am definitely going to be avoiding Mike Evans. So let me remind you what he did this past year. Mike Evans finished as wide receiver 17, over 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. I think it was definitely a very disappointing season. Wide receiver 17, I think I said 16, but wide receiver 17, it was definitely a very disappointing season for him, especially with Tom Brady. We weren't expecting both of these guys to finish this way, but it happened, and we're here. And now Mike Evans is a year older, nearly 30 years old. Tom Brady is officially retired. And, when's that peak going to happen? Is the decline here finally for Mike Evans? And it's sad to say, in my opinion, I do believe it's here. I'm not necessarily sure I am going to be believing in a Kyle Trask or a Baker Mayfield to keep both of these guys fantasy relevant. And the reason why I'm more leaning to avoid Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is based off the age, okay, based off of what we've seen and how he has been, kind of declining little by little. And he has, but at the same time, he hasn't. He's been declining in a fantasy perspective, but on the field, he's been getting 127 targets in real life, he's been doing great things, but sometimes he hasn't been doing what we want him to do. And sometimes he gets those 2, 3, even 4 touchdown games, and he's wide receiver 1, and we say, there goes Mike Evans. I don't think we're going to be seeing that with Baker Mayfield and or Kyle Trask, okay? Let me remind you, the one wide receiver Baker Mayfield has ever put in the top 15 finishes, that was Jarvis Landry in 2019. There is no way, in my personal belief, that Baker Mayfield can make Mike Evans and or Chris Godwin fantasy relevant. And let me tell you why. This offensive line is atrocious. They had one of the worst offensive line this past year. Tom Brady didn't even have time in the pocket. He was struggling enormously this past year, and I think Baker Mayfield is not going to be any better. And yes, they could draft a quarterback. And yes, they could get some offensive line pieces. And yes, you know, Mike Evans may finish better than what we expect, you know, what I'm expecting of him, right? He finished, once again, wide receiver 17. Could he be the Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf? Could Mike Evans and Chris Godwin be the Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf of 2023? Maybe, because we're probably not expecting, we weren't expecting the way Geno played this past year. But I don't have as much confidence as I do in Geno in last year. Like, it doesn't equate to the same for me for Baker Mayfield, right? So at the moment, what's interesting about this here is that if I'm trying to trade away Mike Evans, but in the Dynasty startup, he does become of value at times, right? Because in the Dynasty startup, he's currently sometimes going undrafted or going in the 10th round, which is absolutely crazy. So here in this round, in this mock draft, he went at the 10-6. That's a value. That's a value for Mike Evans if I can get him as my wide receiver 4, even wide receiver 5. But if someone's trying to trade him away from me, trying to trade him away to me, no thank you. I'm really trying to get him on the low. Now, Chris Godwin, he's going at the 6-11. Once again, can Baker Mayfield, you know, keep this guy fantasy relevant? Can he really sustain him in being a guy that we all believe he can be? Another year removed from that ACL injury. He is 27 years old. He still has a youthful. I would say he still has another 4 years in a dynasty perspective. But I'm also willing and happy to pivot for players around him in a dynasty perspective. I'm happy to buy him low right now, even though I don't believe you can. But for Chris Godwin, I'm happy to take a Zay Flowers over him. I'm happy to take a Brandon Ayuk over him, a DJ Moore, a Calvin Ridley over Chris Godwin currently. And I know that may sound crazy, but I'm just not happy or willing to currently do that. Mike Evans, according to the community, wide receiver 41. Once again, can you get a 204, a 203 right now for a Mike Evans? I would really, really do that because I am looking at Xavier Hutchinson, a Zay Flowers, a Josh Downs if they don't get the draft capital and or running backs at that time. Now, Chris Godwin, he is literally 10 spots higher at wide receiver 31. You can currently get him for the 111. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do the 111 if that's a Zach Charbonnet. Sometimes he falls. A Jordan Addison. Sometimes he falls. Zay Flowers, if he does go. We've been seeing Zay Flowers going to the Carolina Panthers, and he's been averaging going to that spot and going at the 111. I'm really happy to do that. Right? I mean, apparently, according to the community on Keep Trade Cut, he's also equivalent to Quentin Johnston. I am happy to do that in an instant. So, look, you have to take that with what you believe. And if they do draft the Will Levis, they do draft the Anthony Richardson, I think this could be a different conversation. And maybe this whole video is irrelevant. But I think this team needs they just need so much more. And I think this team is going to be tanking going into next year. But if they do get Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, they're going to be set with weapons. Maybe not for long because there are some older guys. But once again, I'm trying to pivot and or trade or avoid Mike Evans and Chris Godwin going into the 2023 season. My fourth must-avoid player going into this season, Davante Adams. I love the man. I love the guy. I love everything he can do and everything he has done. He's won me championships. He's won me weeks. He's done everything and more. But I think it's time to move on. And Davante Adams is a guy that you just got to respect the name. Gotta respect what he has done, what he's doing, what he's going to continue to be doing for the next couple years if Jimmy G can stay up, right? Okay, so Davante Adams finished wide receiver 3, 180 targets, and he was getting peppered with targets this past year. And let me tell you why I think this is a bit skewed. Darren Waller missed a significant amount of time. Hunter Renfrow missed a significant amount of time. And what really helped him was Josh Jacobs was really succeeding on the ground, where Davante Adams, oddly enough, was probably still getting double team or was getting the one-on-one coverage, and Derek Carr was just throwing it up in places only Davante Adams can get it, or Davante Adams is just clearly better than every other DB out there, corner out there, right? But I think it's time to move on, and let me tell you why. I think in the price in a dynasty startup, it's significantly better to pivot. Also in a price of a rookie mock draft, what you can get for picks right now. That is number one. Number two, it's not that I don't believe in Jimmy G, is that I think this is a 1-year gap for Davante Adams and for Jimmy G. Jimmy G is going to come in, and he is probably going to make him fantasy relevant. It's going to keep him up there. He's going to be this guy that we've seen him with the George Kittles, the Deebo Samuels, making the mistakes, making the crazy throws, and somehow making miraculous throws, and the wide receiver making miraculous catches. But I do believe Jimmy G is going to struggle. He's going to a worse offensive line. He's going to a team that doesn't have nearly as much weapons as I would say New England Patriots when he was on the team, and the San Francisco 49ers. And for him to only go to the one weapon now of Davante Adams, I know they brought in Jacoby Myers and they brought in some other people, but I think they will struggle, and he will struggle. Davante Adams in a dynasty startup currently right now is going at the 5'8". Let me tell you players who just went right before Davante Adams and after Davante Adams that I am willing to take a chance on and build my team differently. And I know if you're in a dynasty startup and you're rebuilding, that is completely, and like not rebuilding, you're in a win now window, or you're trying to build a win now team. I get it, but I think the chances are better to get some of these younger guys over him. So once again, he went at the 5'6". Jahan Dotson, Jerry Jeudy, Michael Pittman, George Pickens, Najee Harris, or Josh Jacobs, I'll be really happy with, right? These are guys all going in the 5th round currently. Jordan Addison as well, all going in the 5th round currently around Davante Adams. And I think that's exactly where I want to pivot from. I want to get any one of those guys and get a Davante Adams. According to the community right now on Keep Trade Cut, you can trade away Davante Adams and acquire the 106 to the 107. If I can get a Quentin Johnston, if I can get a Jordan Addison, a Zach Charbonnet for Davante Adams, I would say you can potentially squeeze out a little bit more as well. I'm willing to do that trade right here, right now. And it's going to be tough because I know a lot of people are saying this is Davante Adams. So I agree. Wide receiver 17 according to the community. I just think he's going a little bit too high for my liking in a dynasty startup. We've seen him go as high as the end of the 4th round, and I think we can continue seeing that either rise or fall, but I do believe it probably will fall. And let me tell you why. I believe it will rise, and let me tell you why. It's because the Raiders are in contention of drafting Anthony Richardson, and if that happens, his value is going to skyrise even more. Even though the whole world, at least not the whole world, the whole fantasy community, and the one thing that we all can agree on, Anthony Richardson is a freak of a beast. He can run, he can do all that, he has a crazy arm, but he is inconsistent with touches and accuracy throws. And you're saying that just because he goes to this Raiders team and hypothetically he does start, he's going to miraculously start targeting Davante Adams 180 times and putting the ball placement in the right spot? Absolutely not. I don't believe that. But at the same time, you just the upside is there when Anthony Richardson's on the team. So I completely agree. Look, once again, I'm trying to avoid Davante Adams. I do believe you can pivot and or trade him away for a premium right now before. I would say maybe you can even wait, actually. You can wait to see. But if they don't draft him and Jimmy G's the guy, I would personally be trading Davante Adams away after the NFL draft. And my last must avoid group of players, once again, these are some wide receivers I kind of want to get rid of, pivot, or trade away. Once again, Keenan Allen and or Mike Williams. And I think this is kind of similar to the Mike Evans, Chris Godwin take, and even a little bit shades of Devontae Adams. But let's start off with Keenan Allen right now. Age 30 years old. He did miss 7 games this past year with that hamstring injury, and it took him a while to get back. But when he was on the field, he was doing his thing, right? He was getting peppered with targets. He was getting 14 targets in 3 or 5 games. It was wild. And it was clear that he was going to be missed. There's no doubt about it, right? That he is, and he was missed at the time. So in a dynasty starter perspective for Keenan Allen, I think there's a little bit more grace. He's going at the 9-4. Once again, drafting him as your wide receiver 3 or 4, I think it's a good value right now. And I'm not necessarily sure if I want to pivot away from him. I think there are a couple names I would. Elijah Moore. I would take a chance on a David Montgomery. Even some of these quarterbacks that can potentially fall to me. Like if Jordan Love falls in the 9th round, I'm really happy to take that chance. And a James Cook, I'm really happy to take that chance as well for Keenan Allen. Once again, missed 7 games, and we saw how long it took for him to get back onto the field, especially with those hamstring injuries. And I think we're going to see that a little bit more as we get to the 2023 season. We're seeing the decline of the availability on the field for Keenan Allen, which is a massive, and has always been a problem for him, right? So that is one thing I would personally say I would personally be pivoting right now from Keenan Allen. And according to the community, what you can get for Keenan Allen, it's not the best price, but I think it's okay. You can get a mid 2023 second, so that's around like 206, 205, 204, 205, 206, 207. That's what you can get. So if you can get one of those picks, maybe a little bit more, maybe I'm happy to do that, because if some of these wide receivers or running backs in the rookie class get really decent draft capital, I'm happy to go younger. Currently wide receiver 46 according to the community, going to be 31 years old by the time the season starts. Can I get one of these tight ends, Sam Laporta, a Tucker Kraft, a Luke Musgrave in the middle of the rounds, and trade away Keenan Allen? Or can I get any one of those picks? Can I pivot to another wide receiver that I personally believe could definitely help your team? Once again, an Elijah Moore, any of those guys that can really help your team. Amari Cooper. I'm trying to think of names right now on the top of my head. A Jacoby Myers, a Kadarius Toney. Any of those guys, Rashad Bateman, can you pivot off away from Mike Evans right now? Keenan Allen right now. Now, it's once again similar with Keenan Allen. Mike Williams. He missed 4 games this past year. Also had an up and down season. Wasn't the best for Mike, and it was a bit of a disappointment, I would say. Basically, what we thought where the next step he was going to be taking. He was finished as wide receiver 32 this past year, only 93 targets, 4 touchdowns this past year. He's currently wide receiver 40 according to community, and you're going to get Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Zay Flowers, Kadarius Toney as well around him. Can you pivot for some of those guys? Another thing I didn't mention, I do believe they're going to either get rid of Austin Eckler, maybe not this year, but the year after, or draft a wide receiver. We've seen multiple mock drafts where Jackson Smith-Njigba goes to the Chargers. We've seen multiple mock drafts where Quentin goes to the Chargers or Jordan Addison goes to the Chargers. And if that happens, one of these guys is going bye-bye. And I do believe that's Keenan Allen first, unfortunately, because he is that guy that's getting peppered with targets in the Jordan Addisons, the Quentin Johnstons, and the Jackson Smith-Njigbas, all guys that have seen production, have seen those peppers of targets, some more than others, of course, but I do believe that are all equipped to take over that Keenan Allen role. So I'm more inclined of trading and avoiding Keenan Allen than I am Mike Williams. But if you can also pivot away from Mike Williams, I'm really happy to do that. So once again, Mike Williams, you can probably trade him away for Rashad Bateman and Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney. Keenan Allen, you can trade away Keenan Allen. I think it's a little bit tough for Jacoby Myers or Wanda Robinson, also Kadarius Toney and or Elijah Moore, or both of those guys for mid-second round picks in a rookie draft. So make sure you go check that out. Once again, guys, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, and Nick Chubb. These are all guys I'm going to be avoiding going into the 2023 Dynasty season. As always, guys, roast me in the comments if you don't like my takes. If I sound stupid, it's okay. It's a classic. Everyone kind of does it. But if not, show some love. Once again, like, comment, subscribe. And as always, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.